Hey, I'm Candace, your host, and if you're ready to grow your business and build your authority by getting booked on podcasts, I've got something special for you. I'm launching a brand new course that will walk you through exactly how to get booked on podcasts. Everything from identifying the right shows to pitching, preparing for interviews, and leveraging your guest appearances for growth. Plus, if you sign up for the waitlist now, you'll get early access to the course and these special bonuses. When you officially enroll in the course, you'll save $50 and get a free one-on-one strategy call with me to help you prep your speaking points and align your offers. These bonuses are limited and end on April 13th, so make sure to sign up today. Head to the link in the show notes to join and get started on your podcast guesting journey. I can't wait to help you get booked and start sharing your message with the world. Now let's dive into today's episode. I have Cassie Lindblom on. She is a former mental health professional turned stay-at-home mom and author. A lifelong athlete, Cassie needed to find a new passion when chronic pain ended her athletic career. She began writing custom children's books as birthday gifts for her nieces and discovered her love for creativity. Cassie lives in Chaska, Minnesota with her husband Tyler and their son Silas. Welcome to the show, Cassie.
Thank you.
So we both attended Concordia University in St. Paul. I was a senior when you were a freshman. You were on the volleyball team. I was on the basketball team. And actually, my youngest brother, he also played basketball at Concordia. When you posted that you wrote a book, children's book, he sent me the link because he figured that I would want to know about it. And I thought it was super cool. And I instantly slid into your DM and said, hey, I want to be on my podcast. So I'm super glad that this worked out. I can't wait to hear about your story. So why don't you start with that? Tell us a little bit about yourself from the volleyball college years into now motherhood and being an author.
Shout out to your brother for doing that. That was nice of him. I was an athlete my whole life. It was a huge part of my identity and just something that I got a lot of confidence from. Genuinely loved it. And it was just a really fun part of life. I kind of always imagined that it would stay a big part of my life for as long as I could jump. But it got a little bit interesting my sophomore year of college. I was sitting in class one afternoon and I got a migraine for the first time and had never had one before. Got the whole aura thing first. Did not know what was going on. Luckily, my roommate was there and explained, you're getting a migraine, they suck, but you'll be okay. That migraine has not gone away since the day that it started. Immediately it was a little troubling. Kind of went to urgent care and they gave me all the typical migraine medication. That didn't do anything, which led to going to a neurologist and doing some more of the scarier scans and spinal taps and tests like that. But all the doctors that I saw throughout this time, everything came back clear, fine. There's nothing biologically wrong with me. I was just in pain. A while later, I was at Mayo Clinic and they gave me the diagnosis of new daily persistent headache. So there's other people in the world who have this too. It's just basically this really unfortunate headache that just starts one day and is really hard to make it go away. I kind of just reached the point with that where it was I can't really do anything about this. So I just need to power through and I need to keep living my life. I don't want to stay in bed all day. And so that's what I did. I kept playing volleyball my junior and senior year. And then even beyond that, I kept playing. I was a psych major in undergrad and really wanted to become a mental health therapist. So after college, I then went to grad school for my master's in counseling and did that. And all the while still playing volleyball. But while I was doing that, it just got kind of harder to maintain. I found that it just took my body longer to recover if I played tournaments on the weekends, things like that, which then after grad school was over, I started working full time in the mental health field and everything kind of culminated that my body just started shutting down. I was physically sick, had a hard time eating, in so much pain. My body was just telling me no, full stop. You can't keep acting like this isn't there. You can't just do what you want. You kind of need to make some adjustments here, which was really, really hard. I didn't really know what to do. I had never really had to quit anything before or stop working full time. And it was hard not to view that as failing, right? Because in my mind, that's just what I had to do. And that was the plan all along. After I quit my full-time job, I was able to help out and watch my nieces for my brother. I had 2 nieces at the time and genuinely loved that. Did that a couple days a week. And through that, just spent a lot of time with them and reading books and children's books and things like that. I guess if you rewind a little bit, I've always been able to write. I went to a really great high school where that was the thing that I swear we wrote 5-paragraph essays in all of our classes for my whole freshman year. So got a good education in that, even though it wasn't a focus for me. And I've always just kind of had a quirky ability to make things rhyme and be a little bit silly, which I think is why I just kind of dismissed it as a little party trick almost and not a serious thing. Because I wasn't writing deep, meaningful poetry, but I could just make up little rhyming songs for my nieces about about getting dressed or sending my college teammates game day poems about what they were going to do on the court that night or whatever. So that turned into me thinking it might be kind of fun to try to make my own children's book for my oldest niece on her first birthday. And I can't draw. That is not my gift. I'm not an illustrator. So I wrote out a story and then I took pictures of her to act it out and just went on to Shutterfly and put it all together in a book there and gave it to her for her first birthday. And I liked it. I thought it was fun, but never like imagined doing anything beyond that. But then I had another niece and I thought, well, you got to make things even, right? So I should probably make her a book too. I did another one for her. And it was kind of at this time that people are like, you realize like this isn't a normal thing to be able to do. And I'm someone who kind of does things in chunks. I don't just like do a little bit at a time. It's like inspiration hits and then I write the whole thing. I remember I finished writing my second niece's book while I was holding my son during a nap because I just finished it on my phone and read the whole thing out there. I really enjoyed doing that for them and thought it was really fun, but never really thought I'd do anything beyond that. Then when my son was born, he's 3 now. So when he came along, I thought, well, I should probably do a book for him for his first birthday. And then I was like, okay, I'll do it. I'll do it for a birthday gift every year. This will just be a thing. And this is when I'm finally getting people being like, hey, maybe you should for real try to write a children's book. And that kind of kept coming up more frequently. I kept hearing it from more people, but I just am I can just dismiss things like that of like, oh, they're just being nice and they're just saying like, they don't really mean it. It's not that great or whatever. But it kept happening so much. And I actually started to hear it and was able to kind of look back at how many people had said that to me throughout my whole life, not just in the past couple of years. And then I stumbled across on social media one day a woman who started a business teaching people how to self-publish children's books online and being able to see all of that and that she was able to do that and kind of provided a whole guide of how to do that made it seem actually possible of like, okay, maybe this is something that I could actually do. So then I just got the course, I got the guide and followed all of that and went for it.
Awesome. I feel like everybody has these skills that we dismiss ourselves. It takes someone else to say, hey, not everybody actually can do that. But we're so quick to say, well, that's just nothing. That's just like something I do.
Yes.
So that's really cool. And also, it doesn't usually hit the first time someone tells us either. For some reason, I don't know if it's a woman thing or what, but it's easy to be like, oh, they're just being nice. And so I love that you finally listened to that because as you're telling your story, I'm thinking, yeah, no, not everybody has that unique ability, even those game day rhymes. So I do want to back up a second just because I know how dominant the volleyball team was back in the day at Concordia. Well, it still is. You guys, when I was there, had like 7 consecutive national titles or something ridiculous. I think they're up to like 9 or something now.
Yes.
What was the community like? How strong was that and how important was that for you to have in your life?
Oh my gosh, it was amazing. I love anytime someone asks me about my college volleyball experience because I feel like there are so few people out there that get done playing a sport in college and love it even more than they did when they started. Like so many people are burnt out. And I just know looking back, like I know that I had the best experience I could have had. The coaches there, Brady Starkey and George Pageant, are geniuses. Like it's very clear. The only way that you have that kind of sustained success is the coaches, right? And the culture that they establish. And so there are just so many great nuggets of wisdom that I still carry from them to this day. 2 things are always under your control, your attitude and your effort. No matter what, you can always give 100% at those 2 things. Or Brady often in games wouldn't do much. He'd put a lot of pressure on us during practice and was all over us in practice. And then in the games, it's like, okay, you're ready, just go play. Like we didn't need any extra pressure from him. But if you watch him during the games, most often he'll get up and applaud somebody after they make an error because he knows that they made the right strategic choice, but maybe just missed on the execution. So there's just so much learning of like how you go through the process of learning new skills and developing new things like that. But then also just from a team standpoint, like my teammates, playing with people who just genuinely want to succeed for one another is the coolest thing ever. I think volleyball is really the ultimate team sport because like I played middle, I was in the front row only. I usually needed 2 other people to do good things before I even had a chance at affecting the play. To play with incredibly talented people who all knew how much we needed each other to be successful was so, so special and something I definitely didn't take for granted.
Yeah, it's interesting because I remember watching a lot of the games and they'd be in like, first off, they're in like cargo sports shorts with tennis shoes sitting on the sideline with
Yeah.
their legs up and crossed, just nonchalant. It can be tournament time, it can be whenever, and they're just not sweating it at all. And I
Yeah.
played for a coach. Do you remember Fess? Coach
I do.
Fessler? And
Uh-huh.
he also was a great coach. Love the guy. But he was about the exact opposite of that. And he
Mhm.
was on us and he was on
Mhm.
me a lot. I still think to this day I'm one of his favorite players because of how much he rode my case. But yes, I knew that even though with that, I think college is just a really different level of everyone on the team is committed to the greater good for the group. And sometimes in high school, we don't get that. And, you know, there's mean girls and there's cliques and whatever. But I feel like when you hit that college level, it really is different. And we don't then have stuff that like mimics that afterwards. So community is really important to me and my entrepreneur community as well. So that's why I wanted to make sure I asked that because I knew it would be such a good, cool experience. And plus, you're right. Nobody asks us about those times enough.
Well, what's funny is that I worked at Concordia as an admissions counselor for a little bit. Absolutely loved it, but it was so strange to go back and have people like care that I played a college sport and like won national championship. Because while you're there, everyone thinks it's the greatest thing ever. But then you graduate and it's like, okay, cool. Like you don't need to go around and tell anybody about that. But
absolutely. I think just now recently, my son is 9 and he just got into basketball this year, like heavily into it. So now it's like the first excuse I have of pulling out an old game tape because he wants to watch it. And I'm like, so like reliving it and all of that, which is like, yeah, nobody's asking me about that or how that went or about any accolades that I may have had during that. But yes, too funny. Let's get into a little bit then. You talked about how you're inspired to become an author and write this, following those nudges that people are kind of leading you into. What was the process of publishing a book like? And what maybe did you learn along the way with that experience?
A big part of all of this is that I'm in therapy because it's the best.
Same.
You know, I kind of came to her one day and just said, I think I might want to write a children's book, but I don't know. And she's like, yes, of course you should. Like, you can clearly do this. You have all these people telling you you should. I just struggled so much in confidence of whether or not I should and what to do and where to start and whatever. And she really helped me by just being like, well, what's the first thing that you would need to do? What would you need to do in order to start this? And I'm like, well, I need to write something. And then I need to show it to some people who I trust that aren't just going to be like, yes, people that'll just say you're great no matter what. But I'm like, I need you to look at this and be critical and tell me, like, do you think that this is actually a good idea and something that I should actually pursue? That's what I did. I think it was like the same day after I was in therapy talking to her about it, the same day I came home and wrote my book almost verbatim as it is today. It all just kind of came out because it's basically a day in my life with a toddler. But I took that and showed it to my husband and showed it to some close friends and my mom, my aunt, who's incredibly creative and she's a third grade teacher and writes little songs. Like she kind of has the same rhyming type thing that I do. And all those people are just like, yes, this is so good. Absolutely, you should do this. Like, of course. I really needed that. I didn't have that internal confidence, especially something with like art that this is so subjective. So I'm like, well, I think it's kind of good, but I needed a little bit of help in that area. And then once I did that, I got this self-publishing guide and started following that. And a big part of that was connecting with an illustrator. Because like I said, that's not my gift. Started online and then was actually connected through a family friend. So my mom told one of her good friends about it. And she's like, oh, I know someone who would be fantastic for that. That's how I got connected with Robin Kane. And she actually lives in Stillwater, Minnesota. We still haven't met in person. I'm really excited to do that. But she's fantastic. The illustration process is probably the largest chunk of time in all of this, which makes sense if you look at the book and any other children's book. Those illustrations are so important and so beautiful. It's true art on every single page, and kind of had to wait during that time, but then made up a plan of what launching it would look like and the steps beyond that. Like I said, I had a guide on all of it, but also kind of had to adjust a little bit just in my own capabilities of I can't do everything 100% full speed ahead. I kind of need to take things in smaller chunks. And even since launching the book, that's been a little bit harder for me to accept at times. I kind of want to go back to my previous MO of doing things that way, but slowing it down and being okay with taking it step by step and a little bit at a time has gone really well so far.
Good. So it sounds like I didn't even comment on the chronic pain thing, and that I can't even fathom. And so when you have those setbacks, let's call them setbacks, if there's a way to use it to your advantage, you are, in that you're having to be so intentional of what pieces you're working on and what gets to be worked on first. You kind of prioritize that based on knowing that you have that to also consider, that you can't just work in full go all the time mode.
It's made me realize that having to do things differently doesn't necessarily equate failure. And that's a big shift in my mindset from like, well, I thought I would work a normal full-time 9 to 5 job and do all this exactly how most people in society do things. And my body just doesn't respond well to that. I've had to painfully learn that lesson a few times. So kind of viewing those setbacks just as opportunities to learn and change. And it doesn't mean I don't feel the feels about it and get frustrated when things don't go the way I want to, or if I don't feel as well as I want to in order to get all the things done that would be ideal. But yeah, just as opportunities to change and learn and do things in a way that works for me.
It's so true that we have this idea. I bet everybody has an idea of what it's supposed to look like, and rarely does it look like that. So the sooner we can release ourselves of that unrealistic expectation, probably the better that we'll be off. Give me a couple technical pieces. I have actually been asked by other people. I wrote a journal, not a kid's book, but I made a journal. So each page is kind of custom and different. And I published it through Amazon KDP. Some people have asked me, and they've written or they have an idea like you of a children's book, and they're like, where can I go get this published? Well, when I did it, I had to have a certain page count. There needed to be like 70 something pages for the way I went through. Give me a couple technical pieces, like where could someone go, or what could someone Google? Or do you have any advice there for someone that's looking to do something similar?
So Kirsten Fossler, I can give you her information if you want to link it somewhere, because that's who I followed and got her guide and her checklist with everything. She really lays out step by step every little detail that you need. And then just working with the right people when it comes to Illustrator. There are some illustrators that can do all the formatting and have it like Amazon KDP ready. My illustrator is relatively new to the whole process, so she doesn't have that down yet. But then there's book designers who do all of that, and they're very used to working with self-published authors. So essentially, if you have a children's book idea, all you need is the manuscript. If you can connect with an illustrator and a book designer, and they'll take all of that and put it together and send you the files that you then upload to Amazon KDP or Ingram Spark, whatever print-on-demand platform you want, and it's ready to go from there.
Perfect. Yeah, we can certainly link all that in the show notes. That'd be really helpful. What do you find helpful in taking new leaps, new adventures like this? Let's say like writing your book. How do you make that happen? What do you consider, or what advice would you have for someone that's looking to take a leap, pursue something different like that?
Getting support from other people was a huge piece. I know I said that earlier. And trying to find the enjoyment in it too, of why did I really want to do this in the first place? Since having my son, I don't think I mentioned before, like I had a son and then I became a stay-at-home mom. While I love that, it's been a really good balance for me. I kind of joke with people because I'm like, I have chronic pain, so I had to stop working full time, but then I became a stay-at-home mom and I work more than full time. It just never ends now. But because of the nature of being a stay-at-home mom, it's a really good balance of distraction and, flexibility when I do need to take care of myself a little bit more. But in doing so, as a stay-at-home mom, and then I don't play volleyball anymore, which was my biggest hobby, I didn't really know what to do with myself. The whole reason I did this was just to have something that was just for me. So I think in starting off, trying to find the joy in that and trying to hold on to why it was important for me to do in the first place. A lifelong athlete, I'm a competitor. And so then when the book's coming out, I want it to perform super well and crush everything, right? But then it's like, no, like that's not why I did this in the first place. Trying to figure out what success would look like for me ahead of time, and not just basing it on numbers, but how it makes me feel of putting my story out there and telling people why I wrote a children's book, or how I feel seeing it show up in the hands of other people's little kids. it's really important to determine that before jumping into a big project.
That's good advice. And I feel like that someone who's gone to therapy can only give that advice. Like, how does it feel in your body? That's something that I ask myself all the time now. But gosh, you nailed it. When we're athletes, we don't get to ask, how does this feel in my body? Because it's all about pushing through pain or injury. I've played injured. So have you, so have everyone we know. And there was a big unlearning, I feel like, from college athletic to living just a regular person's life and navigating that. And that's one of the things I feel like I've had to unlearn the most, is that I'm just like wired to just push and like, I'll just get it done. We'll just push through. And I don't even have chronic pain, but it always ends in sickness or burnout or, all the things. So it's a really great message to pause. And even if you don't have chronic pain, or even if you do, gotta check in and see, like, how does this feel in my body? What will it feel like? And get in touch a little bit more. So I love that. As we wrap up here, what message would you like the listeners to take away today if they remember nothing else?
There's something that sparks an interest in you, or you feel really passionate about, that you think, maybe I could see myself doing this. All those times someone would say, you should write a children's book. There was definitely like the little butterflies inside but then I'd push them away. If you have something like that, listen to it, pay attention to it, and then just figure out what your first step is. And that's all you got to do. A lot of times we feel like we need to have everything figured out before we pursue something. I know I don't like being bad at things or having to figure things out or be outside my comfort zone, but figure out just what your first step is and just start there. And that's all you got to do. Whether it's saying it out loud to somebody else, saying, oh, I'm really passionate about this. I think I want to write a children's book or whatever. Or finding someone who does what you might want to do and take them out for coffee and just pick their brain. Just figure out your first step and start there and just jump in, even if it's just dipping your toe in the water a little bit.
I could not love that advice anymore. So where can people connect with you?
Instagram would probably be the biggest place. It's Cassie_Lindblom_author.
Perfect. I will link that in your book and then the resource that you mentioned in the show notes for our listeners. And thanks so much for being on. I know that this is your first podcast, and so I appreciate you stepping outside of your comfort zone and joining me today.
Perfect. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for tuning in. If you're ready for podcast mentoring, whether it's setup, editing, planning, or guesting, you can book a one-on-one call with me through the link in the show notes. I hope you feel seen, inspired, and like your dreams and goals are completely valid, because they are. See you next Tuesday.